All right, Fab, you have said 11,000 hedge fund managers. There are too many in the system. Is this the year when that gets realized, and in 2016, are we going to see that number drop significantly?
I think you'll continue to see new people wanting, show up with a dollar and a dream. You go to Kinko's, you get a business card printed up, and you're a hedge fund manager. And part of that was, the waves of layoffs at the, within the financial services space, where people made that transition. But yes, I think for a lot of funds it's going to be a challenge, and small funds and big ones. One of the funds run by Alan Howard, whom I respect, it's going to be another 2% year. I don't think Brevin Howard has had above 3% since this decade. I mean, it's getting a little long in the tooth.
Well, I think as much as we hear about how challenged the hedge funds are, aren't funds on net inflowing? Aren't they still gaining money overall?
They are. We've just had this very odd period of several years where the hedge fund industry overall has underperformed the S&P on several bases. Even if you look through the 10-year period, it's looked really bad. But people have been continuing to just dump money into hedge funds. And finally, this year, it looks like we're kind of cresting over that hump, and inflows are slowing down really dramatically. And I would argue it's going to be good for the industry to kind of get a little smaller, to shake out the weaker players, and for people who are not getting a bang for their fees to kind of go elsewhere. And I think ultimately that's going to be good because there are too many funds.
But Fab, the funds who are getting the big inflows now, it's a diversification play. If you're talking about Citadel or Millennium, these are the opposite of single strategy. Bill Ackman or David Einhorn have 4 positions on, maybe 6 or 7. So you are making very concentrated bets. Millennium's got about 80 teams at this point.
Right, and what you're finding is that these teams that are, the outfits that are very diversified, a lot of them are having a harder time with that. Izzy Englander, and his Stat Arby kind of world continues to just grind it out. It's probably one of the best funds in the world. But when you look at the, when you look at the average guys, way too many of them have also been lazy and don't belong in the industry. And meaning by that, I mean,
this is Sarah loves to talk about.
Yeah, let's look at an ETF. The Guru ETF just pulls the largest positions out.
Right.
That, this is just a simple kind of brain dead way of looking at ETF way. Excuse me. Let me refinance that. Let me restate that. And it's getting slaughtered. All this is doing is taking the largest positions in the world, in the hedge fund world, and slapping them together into a single ETF. And it's down double digits, because the reality is, if you're in these crowded trades, if you're not doing your own original research, if you're not thinking independently, and this being Christmas, you could recommend The Big Short, great flick, and thinking independently matters, and having a thinking outside the box matters. And if you're going to be following what everybody else does on their 10Ks and Qs, you're going to get slaughtered. And that's what's been happening to people, crowded positions.
Well, no doubt about it. But I also think it's, again, thinking about where you should have been. Where was there opportunity? You could absolutely see that the emerging markets were slowing down. So therefore, what does that mean? Less demand for oil. But you could see also that there was no doubt that we were continuing to pump more and more oil. But who does that benefit? That benefits, obviously, consumers. Well, why is the U.S. doing well? Well, 70% of our GDP is consumer spending. So therefore, you get this gasoline savings dividend, which is $1,054 per consumer, which 72 cents of each dollar is being spent. There you go. So readjust your portfolio to reflect that.
You make it sound so easy.
Well, I think the thing is people are over confusing because they get so micro so quickly. I must look at this trade versus this trade rather than sitting there and saying, what is the world saying to us in the first place?
Right.
And then how do we then go and execute that position?
Well, I think a lot of funds become a victim of their own success. They get so big, and by the time they're huge and you read about them in the newspaper and you read about the fund manager buying a $60 million house and buying the Mets or whatever it is, you have missed your window to get in and achieve the sort of best period, the golden period in that fund manager's career.
But hold on, in their defense, but Fabio, there is a mismatch. Hedge fund managers who raised money in the last 5 years were forced to give very short-term liquidity and give terms to their investors they didn't want. So even those who are right, who are fundamentally negative on the economy, capitulated 6 to 10 months ago and got long because they were getting carried out, and now they're screwed.
Right.
No one's going to redeem a fund that's making money, though, so it doesn't matter what liquidity you give to them. The reality is...
Oh, you are a smarty pants.